Good morning, everyone. That was lively. I loved it. Love that. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community, we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. If you're joining us as a newcomer or a visitor this morning, feel free to stop by the welcome table after worship in Robinson Lounge to learn more about our congregation. Now note, as many of you know, I am not the minister. Okay, Reverend Bill is away this week, and he's kindly invited me and Cindy and John to help lead the service this morning. We're going to do our best to make it a delight. And yes, again, welcome everyone. Members and visitors, we're happy to have you here with us today. We have an announcement. Usually there are many, but today just one. UU Princeton is proud to host the Buddhist monks of Gaden Shartse from August 20th to 25th for public events, including a sand mandala, a butter sculpture workshop for UU Princeton children and youth during Sunday worship, and Dharma talks on Buddhist teachings. This is going to be a really big event. It's very exciting. I don't know if anyone else has been to a sand mandala construction before. It just sounds so interesting. So I'm very excited about it. We're pulling together a lot of volunteers to make this a successful event. There will be a sign-up genius. No, there is a sign-up genius on the website right now. So if you can volunteer to bring food to one of the dinners that we're giving for these monks, or if you can help during the mandala construction as an usher, that would be great. So you can find out more details about this event on the UU Princeton website and invite all the people you know to come and check it out. There's a long schedule. It's a 5-day event. And tickets will be going on sale soon just for the opening and closing ceremonies because they should be pretty lovely. And that's it. That's it for announcements today. Now for our chalice lighting.
A community is like a ship. Everyone ought to be prepared to take the helm. Henrik Isben.
When I first came to this congregation nearly 15 years ago, it was this moment of prayer in our service that meant so much to my soul. Back then, at the close of the prayer, the singing bowl was chimed, and we haven't done that in many, many years. I thought we could do it again today. I always found that the chime helped to guide my mind to a place of stillness and renewal. So after I do the prayer, please, I invite you to have the same experience. May you feel the significance of the space we hold together today. With all of our hearts open and vulnerable during these moments, may you feel healing and gratitude expanding within and around you. Know that it is not an empty silence, but one filled with our hopes, our love, our care. May this pause renew you and connect us all today in spirit.
Good morning. I am not a joiner. The first time I heard someone say this was decades ago at an orientation session for our Newark, Delaware co-op. I was puzzled. $20 a year and an hour or two of shelf stocking monthly seemed reasonable. Well, fast forward a bit, while juggling 2 careers and several babies, that phrase echoed in my mind. Each time I refilled the bulk bean containers, the joke was on me. But it made me wonder, what does it really mean to join something and become a member? Some groups we join intentionally, Others by circumstance, included whether we want to be or not. Some come with inherent privilege, while others have us starting at the back of a pack in a race that we didn't even know we were in. I was born into an evangelical community near Pittsburgh, go Steelers, part of a large extended family, but my nuclear family was just me. I felt like a lonely only, especially after large family gatherings. I secretly resented my mom, as it seemed to me that she took her large immediate family of brothers and sisters for granted. She was a member of Club Big Family that I, as a child, could never join. I have many happy childhood memories of a loving church community. It was a less divisive time when we prayed for our political leaders, not demonized them. However, in college, I started to doubt my faith. But instead of a loving encouragement, I faced exorcism to expel the demon of doubt from my body. I thought I was a lifelong member, but I was shocked by how easily I could be cast aside. After years of resentment, though, toward organized religion, I discovered Unitarian Universalism, and I was elated to find a religious community where I could grow spiritually without fear of excommunication. Nowadays, however, many of us grow up unchurched. The fear of losing one's spiritual community is a foreign concept. Instead of fleeing organized religion, many question why join at all. And it's not just religion. Many societal groups and norms have diminished. For example, people now have an average of 12 jobs in a lifetime. Social media creates an illusion of connection with friends and family, while studies show that we are lonelier now than ever. Monthly subscriptions promote a culture of temporary engagement and easy cancellation, eroding our sense of long-term commitment. In light of these cultural norms around weak membership ties, we here at UU Princeton can fall into two ways of thinking about our congregation. One is transactional. Many of us come for specific ministries: religious education, Buddhist meditation, inspiring sermons and music, rainbow music and ministry, green burial, social justice. I could go on and on. In fact, 31 of our fellow congregants stood up and spoke to each of their respective ministries at the stewardship service in March. But to thrive, we need to transcend these siloed experiences. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. By embracing how these diverse pursuits interconnect, we build a stronger UU Princeton. This interconnectedness ensures that every member feels deeply engaged and supported, knowing that their contributions are part of a larger unified mission. The other way of thinking about UU Princeton involves charitable giving. While UU Princeton passionately supports many worthwhile causes, UU Princeton is not a charity, and we, its congregants, are not merely donors. Viewing ourselves as benefactors implies a one-sided relationship, suggesting we only give to UU Princeton without gaining personal growth or connection. True engagement means we both contribute to and benefit from our community, fostering deeper connections and mutual growth. As we reflect on the meaning of membership here at UU Princeton, it's crucial to recognize that being part of this community requires a commitment of time, talent, and treasure. It is more than a contribution. It is a shared responsibility and investment in our spiritual home's future. By fully engaging and contributing our resources, we ensure UU Princeton can provide the programs, outreach, and support that nurture our growth and sustain our mission. Through our combined efforts, we create a space where each of us can grow, learn, find deeper meanings in our lives, and extend our compassion and support to the wider community for our time and for generations to come. We are UU Princeton, and UU Princeton is us.
Good morning. This summer, our family is celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the day that we first set foot in this building. It wasn't that long after that first visit that we became members. the day we joined, Reverend Bill gave us UUCP coffee mugs. And as we were walking back to our cars at the end of service, I think it was Linda Benson who saw us and says, "Oh, I know what those mean. Congratulations." And in typical UU fashion, within 5 minutes of people knowing we were members, we were asked to volunteer for something. And in the ensuing years, I personally received numerous respectful requests to volunteer or participate in some kind of UUCP activities, such as helping with the RE program, the OWL program, chalice circles, committees, and more. Unless it was something with the music ministry, which I did say yes to, most of my responses were a firm no. And to be honest, I was a member, but I didn't even really see myself as a Unitarian Universalist. Having grown up vehemently atheist and never spending any Sundays ever in a church, it was kind of hard for me to get used to coming to this place every Sunday. But luckily, none of you expelled me from the community for never participating. And, there wasn't that much pressure to volunteer, only respectful requests every once in a while. Honestly, I think people just got tired of asking me, so they stopped. But the way that UUCP actually embraced me, even though I wasn't that engaged, was really critical for me to be able to feel comfortable joining this community. If being part of the congregation meant that I had to follow a laundry list of rules, or I was forced to attend a bunch of different things, or I had to tithe 10% of my salary, something like that, I would have gone running. At the time when I joined, I was working full time. I had one kid. Eventually, I had another kid. I was getting my master's and I was trying to build a career. So I skipped a lot of Sundays and I never really felt I had the time and energy to engage with UUCP at all. But with this 10-year anniversary of our family being part of this community, I've been reflecting on what membership in the congregation actually means to me, and what being a Unitarian Universalist really means to me. I finally started asking myself, what is my responsibility to the congregation that has meant so much to me and my family? And what's my responsibility to this religion at large that is speaking the love-centered truth to the world that I think the whole world needs to hear right now? This year, I finally realized that my responsibility to the congregation is to engage with the community. I've joined a chalice circle for the first time. I'm obviously now a worship associate, and I even joined my first committee this year. I know, right? And through these experiences, I am engaging so many more people in this community now, and I've shared some really deep personal connections, especially my people in the chalice circle. A lot of these people I've been going to church with for a decade, and I've barely even spoke to them. But now I'm finally realizing that for me, membership without engagement is hardly membership at all. So my first engagement with Unitarian Universalism at large came with these recent changes to the Article 2 of the bylaws. So as a passionate vegan, I had already discovered the Unitarian Universalist Animal Ministry. Do you guys know that exists? It's an actual thing, yeah. A lot of UUs don't even know about them, but the UUAM, that's their button. It's an organization within Unitarian Universalism that promotes and supports justice seeking for non-human animals. So during the feedback period for the Article 2 changes, the UU Animal Ministry implored everybody who's on their mailing list to contact the UUA and advocate for language that includes animals into our circle of concern. So I personally wrote multiple emails to the UUA, as did, I know, a number of other animal advocates. And the UUA listened to us. With the inclusion of the sentence, "We covenant to protect the earth and all beings from exploitation," I feel like my engagement actually turned into something. I'm sure my emails alone didn't do anything, but adding my voice to the growing calls for justice for animals within Unitarian Universalism, that helped bring about change in the wider organization. It made me feel that I matter to Unitarian Universalism. And had I not participated in this kind of engagement, I would have never had that feeling that my voice was being heard. So reflecting back on the last 10 years of being with UUCP, I'm a little unsure of what conclusion to actually draw from my experience. The lack of rules and dogmas and the relative lack of peer pressure to actively participate allowed me to be comfortable as a casual participant for almost a decade. However, I have experienced more deep connections to the community here in the last 6 months than perhaps in the whole last preceding 9 years. So maybe would a little more inspiration or organized structural peer pressure from the leadership at UU been beneficial to me? Maybe. I don't know. I might have started engaging earlier, or I might have been scared off. It's hard to say. But at least I can say today that now that I know that my membership has meaning.
It's a paperwork up here this morning. I'd like to start off with a story that's tucked away on the UU Princeton website. In the About Our History section, you'll find a scanned copy of a very old book called Handbook in History, The Unitarian Church of Princeton, New Jersey. It opens on July of 1948 with a letter sent from the late Miss Linda T. Priest of Princeton, New Jersey, to the Boston office of the American Unitarian Association, suggesting the founding of a fellowship in her community. Miss Priest, we find out, happened to know that a retired Unitarian minister from Plainfield, New Jersey, just happened to move to the area recently. Nearly 8 months later, in March of 1949, the handbook author notes that an informal meeting of 8 interested persons is held in Princeton to discuss Miss Priest's suggestion. The group, which the author describes as small but dynamic, decides to announce a public meeting to see if there's local interest in liberal religion and to explore with others the possibility of translating Miss Priest's inspiration into some degree of reality. For the next few years, small meetings are held in different homes and establishments under the name of the Unitarian Fellowship of Princeton. And during this time, a preliminary constitution is drawn up, 25 hymnals are ordered, and a retired minister from Plainfield is made the honorary pastor. The fellowship's formal statement of purpose reads in part, "The purpose of this fellowship is to further individual freedom of belief, the democratic process in human relations, and universal brotherhood." Almost 4 years later, in April 1953, the handbook notes that the movement totals 65 family units and is entitled to apply to be chartered as a full-fledged organization, church organization. And then on May 6, 1953, the Unitarian Denominational Headquarters grants the charter of the Unitarian Church of Princeton. And they all live happily ever after. The end. No, I'm going to tell you what I love so much about this story. First, I love that it starts with a single inspired individual. And I love how that single seed of inspiration sprouts into a handful of motivated people, and how that small pocket of motivation blossoms into a full-fledged organization that takes on a life of its own. To think that Miss Priest had already passed away before the story even begins. Could she ever have imagined us sitting here in this building 76 years later, speaking her name? What a great legacy, right? I didn't mention it above, but I also love that the handbook specifically points out that becoming a full-fledged congregation was, in fact, not an easy decision for these founding members. The author makes the following note. And I imagine this read in the voice of Lady Whistledown from Bridgerton. I don't know why, because it's old, right? The decision to assume the responsibilities and the financial obligations of church status was difficult, but we had able and enthusiastic leaders and a growing congregation. I can absolutely imagine what a leap of faith that was to start a whole church. Many of us know how hard simply deciding to become a member of a congregation can be. It can be a long process, and for some, a difficult decision. I can tell you it took me years to consider myself a full member of this church. I was very much just like John. His story rings true to me. I mean, even after years of on and off participation, I tried pretty hard to stay on the sidelines. Believe it or not, I still have not signed the membership book. I've never seen the book. I don't know where it is. I'm asking all of you today, all of our members here today, how long did you consider membership before officially joining? How many of you out there are still undecided? And what does membership here really mean anyway? What, if anything, is even required to be considered a bona fide Unitarian Universalist? Now, around the same time that our congregation was in its primordial beginnings, there was an ongoing debate in the Unitarian denomination about how to define or not to define membership. In a 1936 report titled "Unitarians Face a New Age," prominent Reverend Dr. Charles E. Park wrote, "A real church is a quasi-public institution to which any member of the community has a right to entrance. To make much of membership is to set up a barrier. What is gained by it? Let the people go out and in at will. The important thing is that they find pasture." Another minister, Reverend Maxwell Savage, argued that the denomination shouldn't even count members at all. He says, "We are not that kind of church. We boast no capital C. As a whole, we're not even an organization. We're a movement, an influence, and as such can be most effective." So freedom of belief, no barriers, come and go at will, not that kind of church, sounds great to me. I'm going to show up, right? This open and relaxed attitude is definitely part of what attracted me to Unitarian Universalism in the first place. And I know that many of our members would agree. I'm a freedom-loving person. I don't like being told what to believe or how to think or how to act and behave. Tradition isn't a particularly motivating reason to show up each week. And I am certainly not afraid of eternal damnation. But I am spiritual, and I do believe in the power of community to make a difference in the world. I want to be a part of something greater than myself, and I want to serve the greater good. So this is the perfect place for me, and I think it's the perfect place for a lot of people just like me. And yet, when I talk to certain friends about my faith, friends who are just like me, who are open to spiritual exploration, who have a need to serve, friends who have sampled a UU congregation at some point in time out of curiosity, they tell me that they're not interested. They say more or less that it's not a real church. When I probe deeper, I uncover a very great conundrum of our faith. It turns out that although the low demands of membership and the high amount of religious freedom may be persuasive to many others, it translates as too ambiguous, too incoherent, too unmotivating. They're essentially asking, where's the beef? Why even go? Many curious spiritual seekers come in through the entrance and go out through the exit, and we have to acknowledge that. Loose expectations also influence many of our committed members and the effectiveness of the congregations to which they belong. According to a long report on membership issued by the UU Association Commission, being a denomination of notably loose and low expectations is to some degree an existential dilemma. The report says that the great challenge of liberalism is its inability to inspire and engender institutional commitments. It reads, "Often we hear people say that they are seeking a spiritual community but want nothing to do with organized religion. By the former, they seem to mean a place that will meet their own religious needs, and by the latter, they seem to associate with a place that will make few demands upon them to support the institution's needs. How can these attitudes be reconciled? In his 2009 book, The Almost Church Revitalized, which I found on a dusty shelf downstairs in the basement, such a good book, Michael Doral, an experienced church consultant and a longtime UU member himself, criticizes Unitarian Universalism's hands-off attitude towards encouraging members to lead lives of dedication, commitment, and when necessary, sacrifice for the greater good. He warns that Unitarian Universalism is doomed if it mainly exists as a reaction to religious fundamentalism. He says that our faith must instead work harder to create churches that are powerful, vibrant, and rousing alternatives to secularism. This means not defining ourselves by what we don't ask of our members, but rather by asking things of our members that inspire and excite them to participate enthusiastically. I know we hear a lot in the news these days about the rise of the religiously unaffiliated and the ever-shrinking church attendance, but what we do not often hear is that a majority of the US population is still very open to spirituality. A 2023 NPR poll found that 7 in 10 Americans consider themselves spiritual. 22% of US adults say they are spiritual but not religious, and 81% say there is something spiritual beyond the natural world, even if we cannot see it. So the good news for our faith is that there are so many people out there like me and you, free thinkers not tied to tradition, who also have great spiritual hunger. These are all people who could find a home in Unitarian Universalism. And as we build this faith into the future, we must realize that it's a mistake to assume that religion and spirituality are no longer in demand. It is the way in which churches present these things that is falling short. It's our task to find new ways to meet the demands and expectations of new generations. Often when I speak to my friends about our faith and where they feel it falls short, I find myself explaining to them that I'm not a member of a UU church because of what it is right now. I'm a Unitarian Universalist because of what I believe this faith can become and what I believe it must become. I'm here working from the inside to build it up as a necessary alternative, that necessary alternative that the author, Michael Doral, suggested. I'm here to help it realize its greatest potential and shape it into what it needs to be, to not just endure, but to thrive and proliferate. But let's zoom in. What does it mean to be a practicing member of Unitarian Universalism? And how might you, in this capacity, participate in this collective transformation? First, I'll talk about the low-hanging fruit, simple rituals and gestures of faith, such as lighting a chalice at home, wearing some swag like a necklace or a t-shirt, maybe declaring it on a questionnaire, especially attending major congregational gatherings, water communion in September, in-gathering in November, and flower communion in June. The author I mentioned earlier, Michael Doral, offers up what he thinks membership in a UU congregation should mean. He puts forward the following guidelines for members in good standing. You've heard that phrase before. And he suggests rebranding this as membership with authenticity or integrity of membership. And I like that. I like how that sounds. According to him, you're one of these members when you attend Sunday services regularly, participate in one program per year that deepens your faith, participate in one outreach mission or project each year, reach the 5 to 10% giving level as soon as possible, and tell others about the church. My best friend, who attends the First Unitarian Church of Dallas, tells me that their minister suggests a similar, though perhaps more memorable membership guidelines for her congregation. He says that weekly worship, monthly volunteering, annual retreat, and once-in-a-lifetime pilgrimage. That's what he asks of his members. Finally, my favorite guideline for practicing membership with authenticity comes from the commissioned report. In it, a congregant explains that he understands in terms of how strongly one can influence the destiny of the group. UU Reverend George K. Beach tells us that a congregation must understand itself to be an organic entity and that people should enter into the membership experience with the expectation that change will be the result. He says people do not join a covenant community, rather they constitute it. And each time a new person joins, the whole is literally reconstituted. So these two ideas together point me to this definition of membership. A member is to influence the destiny of the group through the gifts he or she brings into the group and to accept and usher in change. I believe in this. I believe no new member should join this community with the intention of merely adapting to what's already here. No seasoned member should ever be satisfied with the status quo, no matter how comfortable it feels. Change is important. Meeting the future is important. Now I'd like to let our founders reach out to us from the past and inspire us as inheritors of their vision. These words come from the foreword of the handbook. They say, "We believe that this publication will be helpful to our membership in giving a more definite sense of our corporate unity, a keener appreciation of the labors and the dedicated investment of both money and aspiration on the part of those who founded and those who have helped to build our organization, and also a clearer understanding of the need for further cooperative planning and service if this church is to fulfill our best hopes for it, and if it is to continue to be an effective community influence. This volume is offered as a testimonial to a deep faith in our future." So I ask you all today, how much faith do you have in our faith's future? And how can you, as practicing Unitarian Universalists, help to grow it into that vision? Let it be so. Amen. Thank you all. That was almost a flawless service, but I did forget one announcement, and I'd like Judy to come really quickly because I feel very bad I missed that.
Yeah, it was sort of my fault that the copy never got to Kirsten to make the announcement. And also, I'd like to invite John Burton to join the Rainbow Ministry. Anyway, next Sunday, right after service at 12 noon, Rainbow Ministry is having their annual picnic. And this is a perfect opportunity if you don't know members of Rainbow Ministry, kind of what we do, what we represent to come. It's going to be potluck, and actually I have some stuff here I can read. This was actually an email announcement that you may have gotten. It says, "Come meet the heat with Rainbow Ministry at their annual summer picnic. Our friends at the Bay of Reston Center are graciously hosting us for potluck in their space, which is 12 Stockton Street. That's right down where Nassau Street meets Route 206 and across from the municipal building. So 12 Stockton Street at noon next Sunday, and it's going to be potluck. Feel free to bring any meat-free, that's going to include eggs and milk, but any meat-free items that you like, and hang out with your friends in the congregation and check out the Bay of Ruston Center. If you have any more questions, you can either email me or Suzanne with help. And it's just an opportunity to be, to expand your membership in unions.
Thank you, Judy. At the end of our hour, we extinguish our chalice, knowing that this light carries us until we gather again. Go forth grateful for the moments before you, the breath within you, the people among you, and the Spirit guiding you towards lives of greater kindness, love, and beauty. Go forth knowing that you are valued and that you are loved, and remember that you have so much love to give, so much goodness to pour into this world, and so many gifts to share. Go in peace and amen.